some little ideas maybe for question and answer session, and I'd now like to ask Malcolm from Chelmsford to...
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for that. That was brilliant. You might actually find there's a common theme amongst the local contributions because we had similar experiences, but in my reflections on the miners' strike, I would like to place the activities that took place in Chelmsford in context of some national and political issues. I think it's also worth pointing out that 1984 was the 150th anniversary of the Toll Puddle Martyrs, and I'd like to also point out that all our records from that period of our strike committee, they've all been placed in the Essex Record Office, so people can look those down up in future generations. It's perhaps worth noting that the Tories made an attempt to close 50 pits in 1981, but they were forced to retreat. That was an important issue. But that then led Thatcher to plan her next move very, very carefully, because she and her government knew all too well that if they could defeat the miners, that would weaken our movement and force people to retreat and be very cautious before taking strike action. Now, we all know in this room that unity is strength, but this wasn't just ignored by several unions. There were clear attempts, and you touched on this, clear attempts by some leaders to undermine the National Union of Mine Workers. And for this, I have to say, we all pay a very, very heavy price, and that price continues to this day. During the strike, the steelworkers leader, Bill Sears, a member of an organised group of right-wing trade unionists, said he would not support the miners, and he was not prepared to see the steel industry crucified on someone else's altar. He was willing to accept coal from any source to keep the plants operating, and the Steel Corporation happily arranged for its delivery by road. But there are also divisions at the grassroots, and even though some trade union members, such as those in the T&G who were drivers, they were instructed not to go through picket lines, but many, many did. That was the reality of the strike. And nor did my union, the Transport Salary Staff Association, unlike the RMT or the NUR as it was, support the mine workers. We were very deeply divided. In fact, those who support the miners were in a very small minority. We tried to change the EC's position on a number of occasions, but we failed. We had a good left-wing president, first one in our history. We spoke to him about it. He could not move the EC. I put a motion to my annual conference we held in Scarborough that year, and I proposed something that I thought would meet the aspirations of most people, that we would make a donation. The ultra-left suggested it should be £10,000. That was quite unrealistic. The right wing turned around and made it £1. But at the end of the day, about 400 or 500 delegates totally rejected giving any money at all to the miners. So what we did, we went outside and we took a collection, and we got a fair amount of money. So there were good comrades out there willing to, be seen in support of the miners. But as far as the most were concerned, we failed. In fact, it wasn't right until the final Christmas when the EC, following an appeal, I think, from the Welsh or the Scottish miners, they put out an appeal for children, and we gave £1,000 in food vouchers. But even that, I have to tell you, brought letters of protest. So these were not good times when you're in the TSA if you're on the left. These were tough. Early in the strike, I was invited to the industrial meeting of the Communist Party, and Nick Mackay, the Vice President of the Mine Workers, he led the discussion. And one of the things he pressed was actually to win support from every aspect of community life. And that, I think, reflects some of the points that you made, and certainly what happened in Chelmsford. On this question of the ballot and all the answer around the ballot, his point was quite simple. When workers are on strike, you support them. And that's the position we took. And people who opposed us in the TSA argued, no, we can't do it because they wouldn't have a ballot and so on. That was the big division. But we support the guy's line. If workers are on strike, you get out and you support them. And that's what we did. But it was a massive ideological and organisation challenge. But I have to say, in my view, Essex and Chelmsford could be very proud of its contribution during the miners' strike. After the MUM's Executive Committee met on the 8th of March and approved the Yorkshire and Scottish miners' strike, the Essex County Association of Trades Councils held a meeting in Chelmsford, possibly in this room, I can't remember now, on the 30th of April. 23 people attended, representing trade union branches, trades councils and the Labour and Communist parties. We agreed to establish support groups in every town and village to raise as much money as possible and to make regular collections of food. We also agreed successfully to find accommodation for those on picket lines. It was quite an ambitious challenge, to be honest, but Chelmsford CEC was well on its way with a plan to meet all the objectives. After 2 Kent miners addressed the Trades Council and the collection had been taken, delegates agreed to establish a Chelmsford Miners Support Committee, and that's what was happening around all over the country. The inaugural meeting took place on the 9th of May with support from the Chelmsford Labour Party, Chelmsford Communist Party, the Communist Party Marxist-Leninist, the local branch of CND, the SWP and several non-aligned activists. It's fair to say that throughout its history of campaigning, the Trades Council has never experienced anything quite like the miners' strike. It lasted longer than any other campaign. It involved more people, more organisations, and it certainly generated more correspondence and activity than it had ever known. Quite frankly, I have to tell you, it was a masterpiece of organisation, and the greatest contribution of this came from Bill Wright, a member of the Labour Party, who became the Trades Council's president in 1999. It was Bill who prepared the strike bulletins and wrote letters to a vast number of organisations, shops and authorities, appealing all the time for financial assistance or asking for permission to make collections. He also liaised with the County Association and the miners when food convoys were dispatched to the Kent coalfield. He was not alone. Basil Licence, also a communist and treasurer of the Trades Council for many years, took on enormous financial responsibilities. Roger Welsh, a member of the SWP and secretary of the Trades Council, was the main link between the two bodies. Roger carried out many organising duties throughout the strike, including making contacts for regular workplace collections, with official cards being used to record all the donations. It was quite a wonderful bit of organised, I can assure you. So the support committee's first task was to increase its contacts and establish a roster for collecting food. Roger Patterson, a member of the Labour Party, and my wife Jan, a communist, were responsible for organising the complex rosters. And believe me, you've never experienced anything like this. No internet, it was all done by phone. And that phone was hot, day in, day out, week in, week out. It was a remarkable piece of organisation. With never more than 3 people present, collections took place outside Tesco's from 17:45 to 8 o'clock on a Friday. And all day Saturday outside the Sainsbury's supermarket in High Chelmer, which was owned, ironically, by the Miners' Pension Fund. Occasionally collections were made at Gateway, Asda and key markets, and I have to say, cooperation with managers was pretty good. I mean, they were quite understanding. But on occasion, Sainsbury's did ask us, could we please have our trolleys back, because we're short of trolleys. So we did. That was no trouble. So I can't praise the efforts of the dozens and dozens of volunteers too highly. They took 2-hourly turns, week in, week out, in all sorts of weather, absolutely all sorts of weather, waiting for shoppers to place items of food in their supermarket trolley or make a financial donation. It's true to say, the vast majority of people did ignore us. That's the reality of life. And there was the occasional anti-miner comment, but there were many kind remarks. I remember one man outside Sainsbury's asked me on a bitterly cold day, do you want a cup of tea? And he brought me a cup of tea. In the summer, he came back and he gave me an ice cream. This was fantastic. I also remember another man, I was shaking tin, not supposed to do that legally. I was shaking tin, donation, sir. And he came up to me and he said, I'm going to make a citizen's arrest. Oh, says I, a citizen's arrest? I said, go away, you silly little man. And he did. He went away. He just buggered off. That was it. That was a good laugh and joke. But given all the negative media publicity, people's generosity was remarkable. Every day we were barraged with anti-union propaganda and downright lies. And one of these was the BBC's Panorama programme, which actually reversed a film, right, about the miners. It wasn't, the police attacked the miners, but they showed it as the miners attacking the police. You know, that's how, and the headlines, it went on day after day, week after week, and the state used everything in its power to defeat the miners. But I have to say, we never had any trouble with the local police. They were fine. We had no trouble at all. On the 5th of June, we held a public meeting which was addressed by Roger Welch and Sue Innes, a miner's wife, who thanked us for collecting £600 of food and £500 for Kent miners' families. A month later, the Essex Coordinating Committee sent 35 cars and vans to the Kent coalfield. It had £5,000 of goods, of which over £300 had come from Chelmsford. When we were met by Jack Collins, Secretary of the Kent NUM at the Miners' Welfare Club, he said, without such support, we would have seen people starving just for trying to save jobs in the mining industry. After this fantastic reception from the miners' families, it was decided to send a convoy every month. The Chelmsford contribution was initially transported in 3 or 4 cars. Later, we used a transit van, but even this proved to be too small. Throughout the strike, all the activists made regular donations, but most of the food came from the public. Then we decided to ask the supermarkets to make donations. That failed, with one exception. Chelmsford Star Cooperative Society, which had incidentally assisted the miners in 1926. We received £50 in July and £100 of food in September. And I hope those who live locally, or wherever you've got a Chelmsford Star shop, you'll remember this when you do your shopping. That's how Chelmsford Star repaid us. As part of our campaign, Chelmsford Communist Party organised a public meeting in September with speakers Larry Knight, Secretary of the NUM at Stone Colliery, and Anne Field, Chair of Surtuck's Women's Rights Committee. In December, Chelmsford Support Committee held a meeting which attracted 80 people. The speakers were Kevin Barron MP and Maureen Irons, a miner's wife, and David Murphy, a Kent miner, who told us how miners have been taunting pickers about their new videos and holidays abroad, thanks to the £500 a week they received as a result of the strike. Incidentally, that £500 is quite interesting because at the Trades Council meeting the other night, that was something that an ASLEF driver said was being paid to train driver managers for scabbing during the current ASLEF strike. Same figure, £500. As Christmas approached, we stepped up the campaign, and Chelmsford Labour Party published a special Christmas card, and Bill Wright sent out a further appeal for workplace collections. He also wrote to the local churches, and a street collection taken in very bad weather, raised £533.33p. After TUC declared that the 13th and 4th of December would be special hardship days, donations really did start to flood in. I can't remember how much the post office workers donated, but they were very generous. Chelmsford Labour Party and the Engineers District Committee both donated £100. An appeal from Chelmsford TUC's President, Sybil Olive, to comrades in the Jersey Communist Party brought in a donation of £40. So we're looking for money from everybody. We also encouraged local politicians to cast their differences aside, which led to Liberal councillors Keith Andrew and Stuart Mole, the Labour Party chairman John Brownfield, joining Trades Council chairman David Hardy, a communist, making a Christmas appeal in support of miners' families. The public was now much more supportive, and our appeal to assist miners' children led to many toys and gifts being placed in our trolleys. That was very warming. The Christmas convoy to Kent was remarkable, and Essex had now exceeded £100,000 in food and £3,000 in cash. The Kent miners said it was the best in the country. Bad news came on the 1st of January 1985 when we heard that 2 Kent miners would stay with Bill and Ruth Wright, and indeed my family, were sent to prison. Terry French received 5 years, and Chris Tasey was sentenced to 3 years for attacking a police officer during a picket at Wivenhoe, where foreign coal was being imported. Terry was sent initially to Wandsworth. Chris was in Chelmsford, and Jan and I, we used to meet him quite regularly. We used to go there before he was transferred. He spent his 21st birthday in prison. The committee sent several donations to Chris, and every activist was asked to send Terry and Chris a letter every month on the same date. Many did so, but it quickly became clear that letters were not being delivered to Terry French. So Ruth repeatedly wrote to the prison authorities to protest about the obstructions. On the 26th of January, the County Association held a public rally in Chelmsford. Speeches came from Tony Benn, Malcolm Pitt, the president of the Kent NUM, Betty Heathfield, representing Women Against Pit Closures, and David Whitfield, the assistant editor of the Morning Star, the only daily paper that consistently supported the miners throughout the strike. 300 attended, with 50 who could not get in, waiting outside to hear what had been said. On the 2nd of February, 50 people participated in a collection in the High Street, resulted in 1,500 Dig Deep for the Miners stickers being issued, and £540 and 76p being raised. Labour students at Chelmsford Institute held a special gig, which raised just over £61. The local branch of the engineering union held a social in aid of the mines on the 9th of February, and Roger Welsh organised a double-decker bus that took 70 supporters to a rally in London. When the M returned to work on the 5th of March, many tears were shed. The Kent miners held out a few more days, demanding an amnesty for those who had been sacked, and our collections continued until the end of March. Bill Wright wrote to Sainsbury's and suggested that approximately 50% of the £15,000 of goods that had been supplied to the Kent miners had been purchased from their stores. It would not be unreasonable if they too could make a donation to the miners. We're still waiting. In all, the Chelmsford Support Committee had held 18 meetings and had donated approximately £20,000 in goods and money since April 1984. The last of the 13 strike bulletins was issued in May. Liz French attended a meeting of the Support Committee on the 23rd, and after she had related some of her current experiences, many supporters agreed to continue their contribution to the Miners' Hardship Fund. Last year, Starmer, leader of the Labour Party, voiced his opposition to his key people joining picker lines. That was well publicised, but it follows tradition. It was not until just before the strike ended that Neil Kinnock, leader of the Labour Party, actually joined a miners' picket line. This lack of unity and the miners' defeat ushered in a period of trade union decline. This was all foreseen by Thatcher. The number of workers willing to take industrial action declined dramatically, trade union rights have been attacked, and privatisation was accelerated. Ruth Wright wrote a beautiful poem about Terry and the miners. Sadly, his marriage collapsed and he was murdered in Holland. You can listen to the tribute that his friend Rob Johnson created for him and the Kent Miners on YouTube, a song he sang to us a little while ago at our May Day rally. Finally, when the government announced that 31 of the board's remaining 50 pits were to close, with a loss of 31,000 jobs in 1992, an explosion of anger swept the whole country. It was quite remarkable. A demonstration was held in London, organised by the TUC, who, as you said, didn't play a great role during the miners' strike. That attracted 150,000 people, including, I must say, a TSA delegation. It was led by the miners, and it was one of the largest demonstrations since the Vietnam War protests. As we walked through the whole of the West End, we were applauded by thousands of shoppers, guests and staff. We saw a few top hats as well. It was quite remarkable, right? Norman Willis, General Secretary of the TUC, said, people should not fall into the trap of thinking that the rest of the coal or energy industry is safe. No pit, no factory is safe, no shop, no office, no hospital, no school, no bus or train or any other service is safe. No job is safe. I have to tell you, it was a wonderful day. It was far far, far too late. And we have to learn and remember the mistakes that were made and make sure we have unity, and unity is the key to the way forward. Thank you very much for inviting me.